fun begins.
How's it going?
Hello.
Well,
Greetings, young Jedi.
hello there.
Hey everyone, Hybrid Toy Reviews here, and it is Tuesday, so we're going to pick a topic and yap about it for a little bit. Hope y'all are having a good Tuesday. If you have any suggestions for topics for next week, please don't hesitate to fire off in the comments below. I'm always looking for inspiration, and you'll be credited accordingly. So, there is some toy world news shaking the toy world in the last day or so about Funko. Now, like 'em or hate 'em, it's undeniable that Funko has become a cultural staple over the last 10 to 15 years. If a new summer blockbuster's coming, there's a wave of Funko Pops to go along with it. And some people really do not like these guys. I think they're kind of fun. So let's talk about it. I know that, for those that hate them, they always say they all look the same, and that's entirely valid, but I hope that you don't like Lego minifigures at that point. I just like, there's a lot of things that are out there that are popular, that are stylized, and maybe this particular stylization doesn't speak to you, but we don't have to go after it just for the sake of being stylized. I say this as a guy that just got 2 more Firefly Funkos in the mail today that I'm looking to get signed in a couple of weeks, and that's generally my approach with Funko. I used to pick up some just for the sake of having them, and I ultimately really didn't end up loving that collection so much. However, I love the look of a signed Funko Pop. It's really cool too, it's really convenient. You go to Walmart, you find a little figure of a guy on the shelf that you like, and then right next to it is an acrylic protector box for an additional $8. You don't have to worry about finding a sleeve or something online that fits it. Like, it's just right there. It's ready to roll. And I've really found value in that. I like their broad spread of all the characters that are out there. Generally, if there's a character that I would like to get an autograph from an actor of, I can find a Funko Pop of it. Now, when it comes to my Star Wars stuff, generally I'm going to pick a Black Series figure. But the Funko Pops are not a bad alternative. And for some voice actor characters, for smaller role characters, guys that are only in it for a brief little moment here and there, ones that I like, but I'm not like, oh my god, they're the best. A Funko Pop is a really good option for me. They're small, they look nice, they present well, and I just like the look of the row of them. I've been showing you this little video clip of my wall of autographed Funko Pops, and we're going to slideshow through the rest of them as we go on. But I just, I really do like these. So to see the implication that Funko is going away really does make me sad. So I'm going to use information available from the Game Rant article. I will try to do my best to remember to link it in the description below. But it's implying that Funko is experiencing several financial struggles in a recent report suggesting the company might not survive through the end of 2026. This article references the fact that they've have 20% decrease in sale per year over the last several years. They've had a record loss of $1 million in the third quarter of 2025 alone, and their financial struggles have seen them rack up nearly $250 million in debt. That is not a good position to be in as a company. That is very scary. And scrolling down a little bit further, the article talks about how they've tried to push new product lines like the Biddy Pops, and it talks about the line of Superman, and it talks about the Funko Fusion video game having very minimal reception, and it led to a bunch of layoffs at the developers. And I think in here is one of the big things about what's going wrong with Funko. Don't get me wrong. I like my Funko Pops, but Funko likes to go the gimmick route very often. And I don't think that they're realizing that they themselves are the gimmick. The fact that they're stylized and sometimes they're bobbleheads to not be, copyright or license breaking or anything. But yeah, the stylization of a Funko Pop, small body, big head, that is the gimmick. I really don't see a lot of these Biddy Pops selling. I see a lot of these Biddy Pops ending up on clearance. They had a gimmick of doing normal, like, proportioned Funkos, but large, like 12 inches tall or whatever. And there was a lot of those that I used to see on discount a lot. I've been seeing a lot of the jumbo pop Overwatch figures at Ross on my recent Ross hunts. It's just like, I really don't think that the future of Funko is in these gimmick ones, and even in the normal pop line. Every time I go to Target, I see this ruby red gemstone cut Daredevil Funko Pop where he's a fractal and he doesn't look like a Funko Pop of Daredevil. He looks like a Funko Pop of Daredevil made out of rubies and stuff. And I'm just like, why? Like, who's this for? They used to do all these Star Wars Funkos that were Walmart exclusives that were the art line, and it was just really generic AI looking deco just printed all over them. I remember during the Infinity War and Endgame waves, they just redid the original six Avengers in translucent glitter plastic, each one being a color of a varying Infinity Stone. And it's just, who's this for? Who is picking these over your mainline figures? When you're struggling with a lot of your mainline figures going on clearance, I think the worst thing you can do is try to add a gimmick to the gimmick. At that point, you're committing gimmickception, and it really makes it a little bit of a harder product to push, in my opinion. I think of our Black Series, the staple on this channel, and all your sublines. They really liked their holocom, they really liked their carbonized, and I liked holocom, don't get me wrong, but the Acolyte was going to be a tough sell for anyone, and then you take two characters and make them translucent blue, and like, yeah, cool, but like, you're probably not going to catch the masses. They kind of didn't want them with paint on them in the first place. And some of these choices were made at the same time at a board meeting 2 years ago, so it was like, how do you cancel it? But point being, when you add a gimmick to something, you're not going to appeal to everyone in your audience. I think Funko straying from the core Funko Pop line really hasn't done them any service over the years, and clearly that's true because they're $250 million in debt, and they might not have 12 months left before they just have to shutter up and close. And that's incredibly unfortunate because, I do like my Funko Pops. I always get excited when I see a new wave of Star Wars ones. I think about how this would look really good, signed, and they announced a new wave recently that's going to have Yaddle from Tales of the Jedi, and I have been looking for the perfect thing to get signed by Bryce Dallas Howard at all the many conventions that I could have got her at and didn't, and all I can think is, wow, Tales of the Jedi Yaddle, in green paint pen. That's going to be how I get to meet Bryce Dallas Howard, who seems like she would be a really cool person to meet, and I'm really excited now. There's something coming, and now it's like, man, if Funko goes away, what am I gonna pick for these future autographs? Am I gonna have to wait for Black Series? Funko is generally all encompassing. Funko has done a lot of characters that the action figure lines just haven't gotten to yet. I have been campaigning for ages for a Black Series Pelimoto, and Funko, I didn't even have to ask, they just made her. And so, yeah, if I ever got the chance to meet Amy Sedaris, I'm going to bring the Funko Pelimoto because I would like to meet her and I'd like to get her autograph, and that's the only thing there is. And I genuinely, I don't know if Pelimoto's actually coming anytime soon in the Black Series lineup. And I just feel like that's going to be a struggle going forward. When a new show comes out and all the actors like to go on the convention circuit, Black Series is going to drop 5 figures, and then they'll trickle a few here, a few there afterwards. And Funko, man, they're just going to bombard you with 20 of them if the movie's popular, and they're going to kind of cover all the bases. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not particularly happy about this, and don't get me wrong, Funko has a lot of weird, gimmicky stuff where I'm like, come on, what are you doing here? And I totally get it. A lot of people look at that stuff and they get turned away from the line in general. But I think as toy collectors, we should not be celebrating the failure of any toy line. Anytime that a toy company goes out of business should just be a moment of reflection. And if Funko goes away, I know there's going to be a lot of people that collect Funko Pops that are kind of going to be wondering what's next, because there are people that collect Funko Pops to the extreme, and I'm sorry for them, because if this is it, I mean, what are they gonna do? Are they just gonna spend their days trying to grab the ones that they didn't get? What happens when they get all the ones they want? Do you start collecting action figures or hot toys, or where do you go from there? So fire off in the comments below. Are you a Funko guy, or what are your feelings on this? It's definitely a consequence of some choices, that's going on, but it's not something that I think should be celebrated. If you're not into Funkos, you're just not going to see them anymore. And if you are into Funkos, you're losing your favorite collectible. And, it's just kind of a sad day all around. So, anyways, thanks for listening to me ramble for a bit. This has been my 2 cents on Funko potentially going away. Hopefully they figure something out, whether it just be really battening down the hatches and only doing the standard pop line and not doing all the weird gimmick ones, maybe being a little more selective about some of their franchises, because they got to pay licensing fees on all these shows. So, hopefully they can figure something out. It's never a good day when a toy company closes. That's all for now. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you next time. Until then, may the force be with each and every single one of you, and have a good one.